The scalpel slipped from Dr. Elias Thorne's gloved hand, clattering against the sterile tile like a gunshot in the midnight hush of Seattle General's air. Blood, his own, smeared the front of his scrubs, warm and insistent, as if the wound had been waiting 15 years to finally break free. "Elias?" whispered the voice he'd guarded against for a decade, trembling now with something sharper than fear, the raw edge of a truth neither could outrun. Elias Thorne had always believed the ER was a place where secrets bled out faster than patience. But in the fluorescent glare of Seattle General, he'd stitched his own shut tighter than any artery. 15 years. That's how long he'd worn the mask. Crisp white coat over a heart that beat in code, Morse taps of longing he dared not translate. It started in '09 when he was 32, fresh from Johns Hopkins with a residency badge pinned like a scarlet letter he pretended was gold. Seattle was supposed to be a fresh start. Rain-slick streets, coffee that could wake the dead, and a hospital that hummed with the kind of urgent poetry only chaos could write. Instead, it became his cage. The hook of that first shift still haunted him. A drag queen, sequins torn and mascara rivers down her cheeks, wheeled in on a gurney after a hate-fueled bashing in Capitol Hill. "Doc," she'd gasped, her voice a rasp of glitter and grit. "Promise me you'll fight for the ones who can't scream." Elias had nodded, suturing her split lip with steady hands. But inside, he'd recoiled. Fight? He could barely admit to himself the ache that bloomed when he passed the pride flags fluttering outside the Pike Place market. His parents back in Boise, devout Methodists with Bibles dog-eared at Leviticus, had drilled it in. Love like his was a shadow, not a light. So he buried it, deeper than the scalpels in his drawer. Nights blurred into a rhythm of beeps and shouts. Car wrecks from I-5, overdoses in the shadow of the Space Needle, heart attacks that dropped tourists mid-sip of their lattes. Elias thrived in the storm, his voice a calm anchor amid the frenzy. "Clear!" he'd bark, defibrillators humming like thunder, shocking lives back from the brink. Colleagues called him the Rock, unflappable, unbreakable. Dr. Miriam Hale, the chief of staff with her silver bob and no-nonsense glare, had promoted him to attending physician in record time. "You're the glue, Thorne," she'd said, clapping his shoulder. "Don't let this place break you." But it did, in the quiet fractures no one saw. He'd volunteer for doubles, triples, anything to avoid the empty echo of his queen and apartment. There, amid takeout boxes and medical journals stacked like barricades, he'd scroll Grindr in incognito mode, heart pounding at profiles that mirrored his own hidden hunger. A quick coffee, a walk in Discovery Park, always chicken out, delete the app, remind himself of the hospital's unspoken code. Straight, married, or silent. Seattle General wasn't overtly hostile. Post-Obergefell, they'd hung a rainbow sticker on the HR door, but whispers lingered. The board was old money. Conservative donors from Bellevue mansions who funded wings in exchange for family values. Elias had seen it. The queer intern passed over for shifts, the trans nurse grilled in performance reviews. He couldn't risk it, not when saving lives was the only redemption he allowed himself. Then came November 2023, the night that cracked the facade. Shift change at 7 p.m., rain lashing the windows like accusations. Elias was triaging a multi-car pileup when the doors burst open again. Not with victims, but with him. Nate Riley, 28, all lean muscle and freckles dusted like cinnamon across his nose, wheeling in a construction worker with a crushed femur. New hire, floated from ICU. "Dr. Thorne?" Nate Riley, reporting for chaos duty. His grin was a flash of sunlight through storm clouds, green eyes crinkling with a mischief that made Elias's pulse stutter. "Stick close," Elias managed, voice gruff as he assessed the patient. "ER's no place for rookies." But Nate didn't falter. He anticipated orders, held retractors with surgeon's precision, bantered through the blood like it was banter at a bar. By 2 a.m., as they scrubbed out side by side in the sink, suds swirling pink down the drain, Nate bumped his shoulder. "You're a legend. Document heard you pulled a guy back from the edge last month. Flatline for 4 minutes. Elias shrugged, water scalding his skin. Just doing the job. Nate's gaze lingered, warm and probing. Nah, it's more. You care. Like, really care. That care lodged in Elias like shrapnel. Over the next weeks, Nate became his shadow. Stocking crash carts together, grabbing pho from the food truck on breaks, dissecting bad calls over lukewarm coffee in the lounge. Nate was out, proudly, with a Buy Pride pin on his lanyard and stories of exes that flowed easy as the Duwamish River. Grew up in Portland, he'd say, unwrapping a protein bar. Parents threw a coming-out party. Cake and all. Elias would nod, envy twisting like a knife, sharing only sanitized slices. Med school grind, the drive from Idaho. But Nate saw through it, his questions gentle probes. Ever been to the Pride Parade here? This wild drag floats, queer marching band. You'd love it. Elias almost confessed once, under the sodium lamps of the parking garage after a brutal shift. A kid, 16, suicide attempt. Notes scrawled about not fitting. They'd saved him, but the echo lingered. Nate leaned against Elias's beat-up Subaru, breath fogging the air. That one got to you, huh? Elias's throat tightened. Kids like that, they deserve better. Nate's hand brushed his arm, electric. We all do. For a heartbeat, Elias imagined leaning in, claiming that warmth. Instead, he pulled away. Get some rest, Riley. The pull grew insidious. Stolen glances over charts, knees brushing under the nurse's station desk. Elias caught himself lingering on Nate's laugh. A low rumble that cut through the din like a lifeline. Romantic? God, yes. But dangerous. The hospital grapevine was merciless. One slip and his career could flatline. Still, in the dead of night, alone with the rain pattering his window, Elias let fantasies unfurl. Walks along Alki Beach, hands intertwined, no masks. It was a cruelty, that hope bright and fleeting as a defibrillator spark. By Christmas, the tension hummed like a live wire. The ER decked in tinsel. A sad tree in the corner shedding needles like tears. Nate cornered him in the supply closet, arms full of gauze. Secret Santa? I drew you. He pressed a small box into Elias's palm leather journal, embossed with a compass rose. For your thoughts, or whatever you don't say out loud. Elias's fingers trembled. Nate, The alarm blared then, code blue in Bay 3. Duty called, as always swallowing the words. That night, as snow dusted the city, rare and magical, Elias sat at his kitchen table, journal open. He wrote for the first time in years. He's the light I never chased. What if I let him in? The pen bled ink, and with it, a sliver of truth. But dawn brought the ER's roar, and the mask slipped back on. Little did he know, the fracture lines were deepening. Across town, in a Bellevue penthouse, Dr. Victor Lang, Elias's rival for chief of medicine, sipped scotch and scrolled old emails. Victor, with his ivy polish and predatory smile, had long resented Elias's quiet assent. A decade ago, in residency, Victor had caught Elias staring too long at a male patient advocate. Nothing said, but the knowledge festered. Now, with the chief spot open, Victor hungered for leverage. And Nate, the perfect unwitting pawn. As January thawed into February, the ER's pulse quickened with flu season's fury. Elias and Nate fell into a rhythm, seamless, intoxicating. A shared glance during a code, a brush of fingers handing off a syringe. It was romance in fragments, pieced together in the margins. One evening, post-shift, Nate invited him to a low-key queer open mic at a Capitol Hill dive. Just friends, he said with a wink. Elias's heart rebelled, but his mouth formed the lie. Rain check. Instead, he went home, pulled out the journal, and poured it all. The boy he'd loved in college, abandoned for safety. The parade he'd watched from afar, tears mixing with rain. The terror of losing everything for a truth. Pages filled, raw and unfiltered. He sealed it in an envelope, addressed to no one, to the one who sees me, and hid it in his desk drawer, a confessional he never meant to send. Betrayal brewed quietly. Victor, eavesdropping on lounge chatter, Noted the chemistry between Thorne and the new nurse. A tip to HR? No subtler. He assigned Nate to night shifts, isolating him. Thorne's too soft on you? Victor murmured to a subordinate, planting seeds. Elias felt the chill redoubling his walls. But Nate persisted, leaving notes in lockers. You're a hero. Don't forget it. Spring erupted in cherry blossoms along the waterfront, mocking Elias's wintered soul. A rare day off, he wandered Gasworks Park, turbines rusting like forgotten dreams. His phone buzzed. Nate, missed you last shift. Beers? Elias typed yes, deleted, typed again. Can't. Paperwork. The lie tasted like ash. That weekend, the ER imploded. Mass shooting at a ferry terminal, 20 incoming, triage hell. Elias directed the maelstrom, Nate at his side, their hands sinking in a dance of life and death. In the aftermath, as dawn broke bloody over Elliott Bay, Nate pulled him into an empty exam room. Elias, he said, voice breaking the dam. This us, it's real. I feel it. Elias's world tilted. Nate's lips hovered, breath mingling. For one suspended breath, he leaned. The door flew open. Victor, clipboard in hand. Thorne, we need you in boardroom now. His eyes flicked between them, sharp as a scalpel. The moment shattered. Elias stepped back, mask ironclad. On my way. Victor didn't wait. That afternoon, in a closed-door meeting, he leveled the accusation. Fraternization, Elias. HR's involved. Lies woven from half-truths. The glances, the notes, twisted into impropriety. Elias denied, fury cold. Baseless, but doubt seated. Miriam, torn, suspended him pending review. Take time, Elias. Clear your head. Nate found him in the garage, eyes red-rimmed. What happened? Elias's voice cracked. You need to stay away. For your sake. Nate recoiled. Is that what you want? Or what you're scared of? Silence, thicker than fog. Nate walked away, shoulders slumped. Elias drove home through sheets of rain, the journal burning in his drawer like indictment. He wrote one last entry. I betrayed us both. Forgive me if you can. Sealed it anew, this time with a codicil, instructions for his estate, a plea for the hospital to evolve. Then, exhaustion claimed him, dreams laced with what-ifs. Summer scorched Seattle that year, the kind of heat that turned the Puget Sound to steam and tempers to tinder. Elias returned to shifts under a cloud, Miriam's gavel half-swung, Victor's shadow lengthening. The suspension lifted with a warning. Keep it professional, Thorne. Professional. The word chafed like ill-fitted scrubs. Nate avoided his eyes, their once easy banter reduced to clipped handoffs. It gutted Elias more than any code brown. He threw himself into work, volunteering for the overflow from wildfires choking the Cascades. Ashford lungs, smoke inhaled despair. In Bay 7, a firefighter, young, queer by the rainbow patch on his jacket, clutched Elias's hand. Thanks, document, for seeing me. Elias nodded, throat tight, seeing. If only he could claim the same. Nate's distance was a slow bleed. Elias caught glimpses. Nate laughing with the ortho residents. His light dimmed but not extinguished. One night, post-pizza run in the lounge, Elias overheard. Thorne? Solid guy. Just complicated. The ortho bro clapped Nate's back. Complicated how? Spill. Nate hesitated. Then, like, deep waters. You ever love someone you can't reach? The room chuckled, but Elias, frozen in the doorway, felt exposed. He slipped away, chest hollow. The romance that might have been haunted him in fragments. Flashbacks to simpler thefts. Nate's cologne, cedar and citrus, lingering on shared clipboards. The way his hair curled damp at his neck after a code sweat. Elias dreamed of them on the ferry to Bainbridge, wind whipping confessions free. Woke to reality's chokehold. His reflection in the bathroom mirror, lines etching deeper, eyes shadowed by unshed truths. Victor pressed his advantage. Nominated for chief, he schmoozed donors at galas, whispering of stability over Elias's distractions. Miriam confided in Elias over chamomile in her office. He's gunning for you. Watch your back. Elias forced a smile. Always do. But paranoia crept in, locked drawers double-checked, emails scoured for traps. August brought the storm. A heatstroke epidemic swamped the ER. Elders from senior homes, laborers from the docks. Elias pulled a 72-hour stretch, Nate inevitably crossing his path. In the eye of it, during a rare lull, Nate cornered him by the vending machine. We need to talk. Elias's pulse jackhammered. Not here. Nate's jaw set. Then where? This silent treatment's killing me. They met at California Anderson Park after dark. Benches slick with evening dew. The splash fountain murmuring like a confessor. Nate arrived in civvies. Jeans faded soft. Hoodie zipped against the chill. Looking vulnerable, human. Elias, what the hell? 1 minute we're something. Next, you're a ghost. Elias sank onto the bench, city lights haloing Nate's profile. It's not you. It's me, the coward. The job. Victor's circling. Can't afford risks. Nate's laugh was bitter fog. Risks? Like caring? God, Elias, I'm not some intern chasing clout. I see you, the man who stays till dawn for strangers, who quotes Whitman in quiet moments. You're gay, aren't you? And terrified. The word hung electric. Elias's breath hitched. How Nate softened. The way you look at me, like I'm oxygen. Silence stretched taut. Then, tentative, Nate's hand covered his. Warmth flooded, thawing fractures. You don't have to hide. Not from me. Elias pulled away, but slower this time. 15 years, Nate. Closeted since med school. Family'd disown me. Hospital. They'd bury me. Nate leaned closer, voice fierce. Screw them. You're worth more. Their foreheads touched, breath sinking. A kiss unspoken but profound. Elias whispered, I want to believe that. They sat like that till curfew. Hands linked in the dark, the world narrowing to pulse points. It ignited something. Stolen moments multiplied. Coffee runs masked as consults. Texts laced with subtext. Thinking of you under these fluorescents. Elias dusted off the journal. Entries blooming with hope. His touch. First real anchor in years. Romance wove through the routine. Tender and thrilling. A sunset drive to Golden Gardens, windows down. Nate's playlist crooning Indigo Girls. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But the air crackled with promise. Yet conflict shadowed. Victor escalated, assigning Elias to scut work. Endless charts, no glory shifts. Whispers spread. Thorns slipping. That nurse thing. Nate confronted a gossiping tech. Back off. He's the best of us. Loyalty like that? Terrified Elias. What if Victor struck harder? September's equinox brought the betrayal's first tremor. A board meeting. Elias sidelined but summoned as consult. Victor presented. Diversity initiative. Token gestures. He slid a slide. Rainbow lanyards. Optional. Donors nodded. Miriam pushed for more. Elias, silent till then, spoke. It's a start. But real change? Safe spaces, not stickers. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. Noble thorn. Personal interest. The barb landed. Post-meeting, Victor cornered him in the hall. Careful, Elias. Your preferences could complicate endorsements. Threat veiled as concern. Elias's blood iced. Stay out of my life. Victor chuckled. Too late. I know about the journal. Careless. Leaving it in the lounge. Elias's world grayed. The journal misplaced during a code. Recovered but. Victor had seen. Pages of Nate. Of longing. Panic clawed. He raced to his locker. Envelope intact. But trust? Shattered. He confronted Nate that night. Over takeout in his apartment. First time inside. Rain drummed the roof like applause. Victor's onto us. Nate paled. How? Elias paced. Doesn't matter. We stop. Now. Nate surged up, grabbing his arms. No. Fight it. Together. Desperation crested. Elias crushed their mouths in a kiss, fierce, years overdue. Nate melted into it. hands fisting Elias's shirt, world dissolving to salt and heat and home. They tumbled to the couch, kisses deepening to confessions. "I love you," Nate murmured against his neck. Elias, tears pricking, echoed it. Hours blurred, bodies entwined in clothed urgency. Boundaries respected but blurred in emotions tied. Dawn found them tangled, Nate's head on Elias's chest. "We'll be okay," Nate promised. Elias clung, journal hidden nearby like a talisman. But Victor's web tightened. October, flu's revenge. A superbug variant, wards overflowing. Elias and Nate shone a tandem force. Yet fatigue eroded Elias's cough, dismissed as stress. Victor leaked rumors. Anonymous email to staff, hinting at inappropriate relations in the ER. Miriam hauled Elias in. "Deny it." He did, but eyes bore doubt. Nate rallied. A underground support group for queer staff, meeting in a rented Pioneer Square basement. "Your voice, Elias. Let it." Elias attended once, heart swelling at stories mirroring his hidden loves, quiet griefs. He spoke haltingly. "I hid too long. No more." Applause thundered. Nate's pride lit him like bonfire. Thrill peaked at Halloween, ER costume bash. Low-key in the cafeteria. Nate as a flirty pirate, Elias reluctant zombie doc. Amid punch and plastic pumpkins, they danced, slow, hidden in crowd sway. Victor watched from afar, glass in hand. November gale winds howled portents. Elias's cough worsened, chest seizing in quiet moments. "Doc visit." "Pneumonia? Aggressive." "Rest," the GP ordered. Elias ignored, duty calling. Nate noticed. "You're burning out. Let me in." Elias waved it off. "Just a bug." The climax brewed in the boardroom. Chief vote imminent. Victor's pitch. Tradition first. Elias, bolstered by Nate, countered in a memo. Compassion evolves. LGBTQ plus training, ally programs, it's medicine. Submitted anonymously, but Victor sniffed it out. "You're doing, Thorne?" Confrontation in the stairwell. "You'll regret this." Elias stood firm. "No, the hospital will." Victor lunged verbal, not physical. Spewing slurs veiled as concerns. "Faggot favoritism? Donors won't fund that." The word, slung like venom, unleashed Elias. "I'm gay, Victor, and damn good at my job." Victor recoiled, then sneered. "Outed yourself. Perfect." Fallout cascaded. HR probe launched, Victor's testimony twisted. Nate defended fiercely. "Lies. Elias saved my ass in that shooting." But pressure mounted. Elias collapsed mid-shift, fever spiking, lungs flooding. Wheeled to ICU, Nate at his side, gripping his hand. "Fight, love. Please." Tests came. Not pneumonia. Cancer, lung, stage 4, aggressive. Metastatic. "Months," the oncologist said softly. Elias, tube snaking, met Nate's eyes. "The letter. In my desk. Promise after." Nate nodded, tears carving tracks. "I love you. Always." Victor crowed interim chief, but guilt flickered. His barbs the final shove? Miriam vowed investigation. Elias lingered 3 weeks, Nate never leaving. Stolen hours. Readings from the journal, laughs through morphine haze. "You reshaped me," Nate whispered. Elias smiled faintly. "Now the world." December 6, 2024. Elias slipped away at 3:17 a.m., rain tapping elegy on the window. Nate held him till the monitors wailed flat. Grief descended like Seattle's endless gray, muffling the city in wool. Nate wryly moved through the ER like a specter, scrubs hanging looser, eyes hollowed by nights without sleep. Elias's absence was a void. No steady voice calling orders, no subtle brush of reassurance. The staff murmured condolences, but Victor's interim reign cast a pall. "Business as usual," he'd decree. His smile a rictus over the board's whispers of scandal. Nate clung to the promise. That dawn, after the death certificate's cold ink dried, he retrieved the envelope from Elias's locker. "To the one who sees me." But it wasn't just for him. Tucked inside another, for Seattle General upon my passing. Sealed with tape, notarized. Nate's hands shook as he read his first. Pages of love, raw and radiant. You were my dawn, Nate. The courage I borrowed. Live loud for us. Sobs racked him, but resolve hardened. The second letter? A grenade primed. He waited a week, burying Elias under evergreens at Lakeview Cemetery. Simple service. Queer choir singing Hallelujah, like a vow. Miriam spoke. Elias was our heart. Nate, beside her, added, and our conscience. Victor skipped it, flew, but his absence screamed. Back at work, Nate tested waters. Slipped the personal letter into his pocket, the public one to Miriam. He wanted you to have this. She scanned it in her office, face paling then flushing. My God! The letter, 5 pages, Elias's precise script, laid it bare. His closeted years, the terror of judgment, Victor's harassment veiled as rivalry. But more, a blueprint. Make this place a haven, Elias wrote. Mandatory ally training. Queer resource officer. No more shadows for the healers. Data backed it, studies on LGBTQ+ staff retention, patient outcomes improved by inclusive care. I've saved lives here. Let me save souls. Miriam's eyes met Nate's. Victor'll fight this. Nate nodded. Then we fight back. Word leaked how Nate never knew. Perhaps Miriam's secretary, or Victor's spies. By shift's end, the lounge buzzed. Thorne was? And that letter, demanding changes? Ally nurses clustered around Nate. We're with you. But detractors simmered, older docs, conservative techs. Agenda pushing from the grave. Victor struck first. Emergency board call. Donors dialing in from yachts off San Juan's. Slanderous, he thundered, waving the letter like evidence. Thorne was unstable. Fraternization. Delusions. He painted Elias as bitter reject. The proposal's radical overreach. Donors shifted uneasy. One, a tech mogul from Medina, grumbled, PR nightmare. Nate, summoned as witness, burned with Elias's fire. Unstable? He worked doubles while you golfed. This isn't revenge. It's redemption. Questions pelted. Your relationship? Nate owned it. Love. Real as any. Gasps rippled. Victor smirked. See? Bias. Climax crested that week. A perfect storm. Flu surge collided with a ferry crash. 40 casualties. ER a war zone. Victor directed from the throne, barking orders that bottlenecked bays. Nate, leading triage, saw patients wait. A trans teen with a shattered wrist, bleeding out metaphorically from misgendered barbs. A gay couple, one critical, separated by policy. Rage boiled. In the fray, Nate found Miriam. Now, release it. She did, leaked the full letter to the stranger, Seattle's alt weekly. Headlines screamed by midnight. Closeted doc's final plea. Make our safe for all. Social media ignited. Elias legacy trending. Queer activists marching outside with signs. Heal thy healers. Staff petitions flooded HR. 80% support. Victor panicked. Confronted Nate in the locker room. Voice venomous. You did this. Ruining his memory, and yours. Nate stood tall. He freed it. You can't cage truth. Victor lunged, fist raised, betrayal's ugly face. But security hauled him. Assault charges loomed. The board convened dawn. Puget Sound a silver slash beyond windows. Miriam presented. Metrics from Elias's proposals. Testimonials from staff. Donors flipped. The tech mogul. Innovation means inclusion. Victor, isolated, resigned, for health. Cheers echoed as Miriam took interim chief, vowing, we honor him. But the thrill soured bittersweet. Nate, alone in Elias's old apartment, sublet with permission, unpacked the journal. Entries chronicled their spark. First smile, July 15th. Felt alive. Tears blurred ink. Romance's ghost lingered. The couch where they'd kissed, coffee mugs side by side. Nate traced maps Elias had sketched, dream hikes in the Olympics unrealized. We had so little time, he whispered to empty air. Human threads wove through grief. The queer group swelled, meetings in the chapel now, Elias's portrait watching, kind eyes approving. Nate led, sharing, he taught me bravery's quiet. A young resident, out but ostracized, hugged him. Because of him, I stay. Patients noticed. A pride flag in waiting rooms, name badges with pronouns. One night, the trans teen returned, brace healed, grin wide. Thanks, Nurse Nate. Feels seen. Yet betrayal's scar ached. Victor's parting shot. A lawsuit threat dropped when evidence surfaced. Recordings of his slurs, emailed boasts. He slunk to a private clinic in Spokane. Career tarnished. Nate visited once. Off books. Why? Victor rasped. Diminished. Fear, Nate said. Elias beat it. You should try. No absolution, but a seed, humanity's stubborn weed. Winter deepened. Solstice lights twinkling like stars Elias chased. Nate dated tentatively. A barista with Portland roots. But Elias's echo persisted. Anniversaries marked privately. Their first coffee, a toast with single malt. The letter reshaped more than policy. A mentorship fund in Elias's name, scholarships for queer med students. Miriam confided. He changed us before he left. Nate's emotions churned. Love's deep well, laced with loss. Dreams brought Elias. Hands in his, whispering, keep going. Waking, Nate journaled his own, you reshaped the hospital. Now reshape me. Spring hinted, crocuses pushing through frost, as the first training rolled out. Staff packed the auditorium, rainbow pins glinting. Nate spoke last. Elias hid for 15 years. His letter, his coming out to all of us. Applause thundered, cathartic. In the wings, a figure waited. Elias's sister, flown from Boise. He wrote me too, she said, envelope trembling. Said forgive the silence. I do. Hug shared, tears communal. The drama peaked in small salvations. A code blue, elderly man, clutching a partner's hand. He's family, the partner begged. No hesitation. Treated together, lives linked. Later, Nate charted it, pride swelling. Elias's legacy. Not grand gestures, but seems strengthened. Yet the emotional core gnawed. Nate wandered the waterfront. Fairy horns mournful. Miss you, he breathed to the sound. Wind carried it, perhaps to wherever truths float free. Romance, he'd learned, wasn't possession, but echo, rippling outward. By summer 2025, Seattle General bloomed transformed. A hospital reborn in Elias Thorne's quiet revolution. The ER's pulse steadied, no longer frantic but fortified. Dedicated bays for LGBTQ+ patients, counselors on call, training modules that unpacked bias like unwrapping gifts of understanding. Staff wore pins not as tokens, but talismans, rainbow threads weaving through the white coat armor. Miriam Hale, now permanent chief, unveiled a plaque in the lobby. Dr. Elias Thorne, 1977 to 2024. Healer of bodies, champion of hearts. Donors who'd balked now boasted at galas. Our inclusive edge. Nate Riley anchored it all, promoted to charge nurse. Elias's steady hand passed on. His days filled with the thrill of purpose. Mentoring newbies. Quelling codes with calm inherited from the man who'd taught him love's quiet power. But nights, they belonged to memory, soft and insistent as tide pools lapping Alki Beach. Romance crept back, unbidden. A volunteer doc, Javier, warm laugh, Venezuelan roots. Shared shifts, eyes lingering with Nate's. Coffee turned to dinners at Matt's in the market, Dungeness crab cracking under shared stories. Elias, Javier asked once, gentle. Nate smiled, ache dulled to warmth. He opened the door. You walked through. Kisses came slow, respectful. Under string lights at a summer fest, Fremont's solstice parade swirling colorful chaos around them. It wasn't replacement. It was continuation, Elias's lesson. Love multiplies, doesn't divide. Yet conflict lingered in echoes. Victor Lang's shadow flickered. A newsletter blurb. Disgraced MD starts consulting firm. Nate resisted schadenfreude, but old wounds itched. A call came autumn. Victor, voice cracked over line. Heard about the plaque. Deserved. Pause heavy. I was wrong. About him. You. Nate, stunned, forgave. Not for Victor, but for the man who'd urged mercy. Heal yourself, he said, hanging up. Closure, humanistic and hard one. The story's emotional core pulsed in personal salvations. Elias's sister, Clara, visited monthly. Flights from Boise bridged by the letter's magic. Over dim sum in the ID, she'd share family lore. Young Elias, sneaking library books on Greek myths, heroes loving fierce. He was always brave, she'd say. Nate nodded, passing photos. Elias at prom, arm around a boy, smiles tentative. Hit it well. Clara squeezed his hand. But not from you. Humanity shone in the margins. A pride shift floats thundering past on Broadway. Nate led a contingent. Scrubs rainbow-dyed, signs reading Elias's Love Heals. Patients cheered from gurneys. A drag performer, post-lift, winked. That's the doc who saved my fabulous ass. Nate laughed, tears pricking. Elias's ghost marching beside. Climax revisited in crisis. Winter 2025. Opioid wave crashing anew. Nate triaged a young man. Overdose notes crumpled. Can't be me anymore. Revived, he woke to Nate's face. You're seen, Nate said, echoing Elias. Stay. The man did rehab referral follow-up care. Later, a card arrived. Thank you. First time someone fought for my whole self. Nate pinned it by his locker, beside Elias's compass journal. Betrayal's sting faded to lessen. Nate mentored Victor's ilk. A straight-laced resident, homophobic slips slipping. Listen, Nate coached. Patients like us? We die quieter if unheard. The kid nodded, changed, a micro-victory, ripples from the letter. Langman deepened with Javier. Fall leaves carpeting Discovery Park. They hiked Elias's dream trail. Hands linked, breath sinking. Tell me about him, Javier urged. Nate did. The kiss that shattered walls, the journal's poetry. Javier listened. Then, he sounds incredible. Like you. That night, in Nate's bed. Now there's love unfolded gentle. Bodies mapping new territories with old reverence. No rush, just presence, Elias's gift, freedom to feel. The ending unfolded humanistic, neither wholly happy nor tragic, but textured as life. Spring 2026, 1-year marker. Nate organized a vigil. Candles flickering in the ER plaza, stories shared under stars. Clara read from the letter, Let no one hide their light. Applause swelled. Javier's arm around Nate, solid. Alone later, on the ferry, Elias's fantasy route, Nate scattered petals from the cemetery bouquet into the wake. You did it, he whispered. Reshaped us. Wind whipped back, carrying possibility. Back home, Javier waited, dinner steaming, ring box casual on the table. Not proposal, yet. Future, Javier asked. Nate grinned. Ours. Elias's legacy endured. Hospital stats soared. Retention up 40%. Queer applicants doubling. A wing renamed Thorn Haven for inclusive care. Nate, gray threading his hair premature, led tours. This, born from love's hidden letter. In quiet, Nate wrote his own volume, Echoes of Elias, pages for the next generation. He spent 15 years closeted. But in dying, he lived loudest. The ER hummed on, a beacon in the rain. Dramatic, human, unapologetic. And somewhere, in the city's ceaseless rhythm, two men walked hand in hand, ghost and guardian, ensuring no secret bled alone.